Welcome back, everybody, to Ravenstar's Witching Hour. I'm Solaris BlueRaven, and I'm here with my very special guest, Russ Tanner. And Russ, you with me?
I'm here.
All right, and I did post that TENS unit. It's TENS as in TENS. And also, I don't know if you're in the chat or not, but if you are, and people want to ask a question, go ahead, guys, and we'll try to address it on air. That sounds good to you?
Absolutely sounds great. I just joined the chat right now.
Okay, great. So Russ is in the chat. I don't know. Are you under your name?
Yep, it shows up Russ
Okay,
when I post.
cool.
Yep.
All right, so if they do ask you a question, we'll address it live so everybody knows what's going on. But yeah, once again, I want to thank you for joining us. It's been awesome. You're so informative, and what a blessing you are. And I want you to stay healthy. People are dropping like flies, so make sure you take care of yourself, would you?
Everybody. I hope everybody takes care of themselves. We're living in very dangerous times, so it's a pleasure to be here. Though I love being on your show. You're just a pleasure to talk to.
Oh, likewise. Yeah, definitely have a resonance with you without a doubt. Now, I was going to ask you about the chemtrails contaminating the water supply. Now that we were talking about water, obviously it can get into the well supply for well water.
Yeah, absolutely. On our website, we actually collect water and rainwater samples, drinking water samples, blood tests, dust tests, soil tests. And we have, I did a test of my rainwater here in the Bangor, Maine area, found 600 micrograms per liter of aluminum in the rainwater. And guess what? 50 micrograms is the limit that our EPA recommends, the upper limit of aluminum allowed in drinking water. So there is 6 times, in the test that I did, 6 times the aluminum in drinking water in the rainwater than the EPA would allow in drinking water. Mm-hmm. And that's just a fraction compared to other parts of the United States. Some areas in the United States, some areas in California, Northern California especially, are having many times that. The rainwater is absolutely saturated and toxic with aluminum. And this is one of the things that when they spray, I taste it in the air. One of the chemtrail types they spray here often tastes just like aluminum dust spraying in my mouth. It's horrible.
Oh, gee, yeah, you're so sensitive. Like I said, it's like a canary in the mine, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. Most of the people I talk to about this also are the same way. Mm-hmm. And people have to realize, if you've got a friend, and unfortunately families are not very open-minded. When you have somebody in the family who's like, oh, I'm hurting all the time, I'm this, that, I've got these pains, I can't explain what's going on, I'm chronically ill, they get tired of hearing it. And it's very sad because I hear from so many of these people. Mm-hmm. And my heart goes out to them because I get it. I've been there and I understand what it's like. And I'm still there in some ways. I still struggle when they hit us hard. I still fall down and just feel horrible when the plumes are bad. I have to put on my wet mask. That's the only way I get through the day. But my symptoms are pretty dramatic when we get hit with bad plumes, which is pretty much daily. Mm-hmm. And I just have to deal with it. So, I really just wish the families, when somebody's saying this to you, don't just write them off as being somebody who is looking for attention or it's all in their head. In fact, Dr. Hal Huggins wrote a book called It's All in Your Head because that was such a common phrase that people would tell those who had amalgam fillings who had chronic health symptoms. The doctors and the family members would say it's all in your head. It's not in your head. It's very real. It's just that some people have much more sensitivity than others. These are the canaries, like you said. These are the canaries in the coal mine. Please listen to them because what they're experiencing now, you're going to experience next year or the year after.
Mm-hmm. It's so true. And I'm sure a lot of that pain and the suffering is just symptoms of toxicity and, of course, the inflammation. And I think we touched on before on one of my other shows that I've noticed a gel-type discharge from my sinus cavity, which is like very abnormal. That I suspect is an association with the chemtrails.
Yeah, I've heard that from a lot of different people. There's one of the chemtrail types is very drying. I believe it's a barium salt personally, because the symptoms that I have from that particular type match barium, and that tends to turn water into a gel. And mm-hmm. So I've heard what you're saying from other people as well, and it gives you stomach cramps, that particular type. Again, there's 10 different types, and sometimes 2 are sprayed or even sometimes 3 at the same time are in the air. So it's complicated. This isn't just one simple toxin, but sequestering moisture. When I wear my wet mask, which literally is a wet mask because that's the only thing I found that works, when I wear that thing, that will actually dry out in literally less than an hour with that particular type. Sometimes half an hour, it will just dry out, where the other types, it'll stay moist for hours.
Oh my goodness. Wow. What about cysts and causing cysts? Do you think that the chemtrails have a connection to that at all?
I think they can cause almost anything because the aluminum, mercury, barium, strontium, all of these things affect the immune system. And when you lower your immunity, then you will have a whole host of symptoms that will occur, even skin tags, cysts, skin tags, especially in the lymphatic areas like your neck, underarms. That's where they most often show. People who have amalgam fillings all their lives, often when they reach middle age, they'll have a lot of skin tags around their neck, and they just think, oh, that's just genetic. No, it's not. It's actually genetic mutations caused by a highly, highly toxic substance coming out through your high lymphatic areas, which is your neck or your underarms or inner thighs, lower back. These are your areas where you'll get rid of some of this through your skin. So everything has a cause, and when you start nailing it down, you start researching these lines, go down one path, go down another path of symptomology, you start finding the bottom. There's only a few things at the bottom of all these things, and they're almost all toxicity.
I agree with you on that. And what about a lymphatic cleanse? What's a good way to clear out the system on a lymphatic level, would you say?
Absolutely. I mean, one of the best things I know that, I know that one of everybody says this, is exercise. Your lymphatic system is kind of like a circulatory system, but it doesn't circulate unless you exercise. There's all kinds of one-way valves in your lymphatic system, and you've got to move. So that's why a lot of people there was this condition that became more prominent as chemtrails became worse and people became more toxic. They call it exercise syndrome. You would exercise and you'd feel horrible afterward. Well, why is that? Just because you're stirring up toxins. You're mobilizing. They call it mobilizing. You're mobilizing toxins in your body. And when you mobilize those toxins, you start having the symptoms that those toxins cause. So bear through it, drink a lot of water. And there are certain herbs you can take. You can take blood cleansers like red clover, Stillingia. You can take prickly ash. There are things like cleavers. There are all kinds of herbs that will help as blood cleanser. Like red clover is pretty famous as doing that. That's a lymph system cleanser. Also, the liver and the kidneys, got to keep those clear. You know what I do? Almost every single day, I juice. I also make smoothies.
Nice.
And I juice. And what I do is I go outside, and I have innumerable dandelion all over. You can juice the root, the stem, the flower, the leaves, whatever. The entire dandelion plant is incredibly valuable, very good for your kidneys, very good for your liver. And I take the plants, I take the leaves, and I'll go outside in 5 minutes, I'll have a whole handful. And I will put that in my carrot juice. And it is bitter. I mean, some people may not. You could start out small, start out with a few leaves if you need to. But I make it bitter and strong, and I just love it. It makes me feel good.
Oh, yeah, it sounds good. And then what comes to mind, of course, is contamination from the chemtrails to the grass or to the dandelions. And of course, I can't get that paranoid, right? But what is your take on that? I mean, we're trying to get healthy here and grow organically. Say you have an organic garden, but it's being contaminated by chemtrails.
Exactly. How can there be any true organic anymore if you've got aluminum, barium, strontium, mercury, and God knows what else, toluene and acetone and whatever else everywhere in the soils? We've got acid burn showing up on plants. I have people, in fact, it happened here 2 weeks ago. We have a bunch of flowers out front. Their leaves, they were looking all beautiful. Had a really nasty day of spraying. The next day there were acid burn marks all over the leaves. And I'm hearing this from people all over the United States, all over Europe. This is happening to people. So is there anything organic anymore? So you kind of, the way I look at it is that if you have a plant that has an affinity for aluminum, when you juice it, you're going to be exposed to some aluminum, but the fact that it has an affinity to it, it binds to it, is going to help mitigate that. So unfortunately, you can't stop eating. So the best thing you can do is keep eating as well as you can. And then, of course, there are things you can take for certain metals. You can take, like, malic acid is one of the best things you can take for aluminum, for instance, and vitamin C. Vitamin C is a very, very good sequester
Hmm.
sequester for aluminum too. Um,
Right.
yeah. So
And also you have your website that you sell these products, right? If people are looking for a certain product, do you have that on your website?
I do have a website. I do sell herbs. I kind of, and I always let people know that I don't push my sales. If you're going to buy herbal supplements, go to your local vendors, support your local people. I say only go to my website if you can't find what you need somewhere else. You're welcome certainly to buy from me. But again, this is just service to humanity. It's not about profit. So,
Hmm.
support your
Right.
local people. Yes, but
Yes.
yes, I do. I do have a website where we do sell a lot of herbs. Yeah.
Excellent. And what's the website again?
The website's called onlythebestherbs.com.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's great to have it. And you're a good soul, Russ. I love having you on. You're just such a good guy.
Oh,
There are good
thank
people out
you.
there. You give me hope. Oh, thank goodness. I
There are
get
so
discouraged.
Oh, no, I know. I hear you. I hear you. There are a lot of good people out there. And I want to just add a disclaimer to what I just said. I just said something and it struck me. I said at my website I sell a lot of herbs. Let me correct myself. I sell a wide variety of herbs. There's about 500 to 600 products. I don't sell many. The website is not particularly busy because I don't really promote it that much. And I don't really care. I mean, that's not what it's about. Just so people know, because I have had shills out there who try to make me look bad, and they, government paid trolls. There are disinformants that are paid by military contract. They are military contractors paid by the government to make us look bad, to slander us. I've been slandered. I've been lied about because I'm being outspoken about this subject. I have a little bit of personal knowledge. I had somebody who called me who actually had a military buddy who uh, who actually does this. He actually has a room full of 200 people who actually create fake blogs, Facebook accounts, and websites specifically to convince the public that the lines in the sky are condensation trails. They're lying to the public, and your tax money is going to lie to you. It's going
Oh,
back to lie to you. So I just want to let people know I don't. I make a sliver. I make very, very little from that website. Go to your local vendors, buy your herbs there. If you can't find them, feel free to go to your website. Call me anytime or email me. I talk to people every week, free advice. I do it for free for people. I'm not saying that in a bragging way. I'm doing that because I want to inspire everybody to do that. Because the problem is, you know what the problem is? The problem that we have today is people don't care about other people.
I agree.
If you have a relative that's really suffering and you got involved in their life rather than writing them off and saying you're too busy, and I know it's hard today because we are all too busy. I know what it's like. I know it's hard. But if we can involve ourselves in somebody else's life and say, you know what, let's see what we can do about this, you will be amazed to find out not only that their suffering is real, but you'll start learning about the cover-ups. You will learn so much ancillary information about how we're being lied to. When you start really researching diseases, researching health, you will see how mainstream media, the pharmaceutical companies, how the government lies to us about these things. And it always has a pattern of behavior that it seems for the purpose of keeping people sick, which is also obviously for the benefit of the pharmaceutical companies. I
Hmm.
mean, why else would they hide these things from us or do those kinds of things? So we have to care about each other. If we have somebody in our family who's sick, not feeling well, if you have the time, if you can make the time, have some sympathy, have compassion, and you will receive an education that will change your worldview if you're willing to get involved. Because you know what? 95% of the herbalists, I know a lot of herbalists across the United States because they buy scientific information from my main company. We actually collect scientific information about herbs, from peer-reviewed medical journals and university research, and we compile that information for naturopathic doctors and for herbalists around the country. And so I know a lot of herbalists around the country. And do you know that the vast majority, I'd say 90 to 95% of them, are in the business because they got sick. And when they started doing research, they learned so much that they wanted to go share it with other people.
I think that's
That's where their
wonderful.
heart was at. So please get involved in other people's lives. Have compassion on those, because when they say they're hurting, most of these people are not making anything up for attention. They really are suffering. And I know what it's like to be in that position. So try to have that compassion. And if you do, it will change you. You will learn things that you wouldn't know. You will start to view the world differently. It will open your eyes and you'll never look back.
I so agree with you on that. It reminds me of the old days when they had all the homeopathic remedies, and of course, they weren't getting slammed with chemtrails back then. But everybody kind of communicated to each other, and everybody was local, and they'd go to their neighbor and they'd help their neighbor in times of need. And It just seems like that's kind of faded away. So I'm glad you brought that to everyone's attention tonight.
And it's yeah, it has it faded away for a while. We became divided, and mainstream media made us afraid of each other. But you know, the beautiful thing that's happening now is your show. The other beautiful things happening is your chat room. The other thing that's happening is the internet. And I believe that the powers that be underestimated how people would come together and start sharing information. And this is why they are accelerating their plans and their goings on, the things that they have planned for the future, because people are learning, rising up, and realizing that they've been scammed, lied to, stolen from, and they're getting angry about it. And it's because we've come together on the internet. I have so many internet friends, so many people I've never met, but we have relationships over the phone and on the internet that I met who have the same values, who care about other people, who are making a difference, and it's changing the world. It's
Absolutely.
wonderful.
Yeah, I agree with you. Well, there's souls here. I mean, we're actually life forms. We're souls. We're not just bodies wandering around. And
Yeah.
I think that it's such a disservice that these guys are hired to actually be disinformation or try to screw people over who are telling the truth. That just blows my mind when you told me about that, Russ.
Yeah, that I want people to know that. I try to bring this up in every interview that I do, because people need to understand that that this really happens. Disinformation. I mean, I've been in the herb industry now since the mid '90s, and I learned about this even before that, because I was sick. I got sick from my amalgam fillings, and I had to research, and that's how I got into it. But because of being in this industry and actually seeing the scientific information. My business partner does collates the research. She's a walking encyclopedia. I mean, she can walk into a room and just lecture. I mean, she could just talk off the top of her head for hours and hours about the deep information. And so I'm very blessed in that regard to be working with someone so brilliant. And I want to say that what this really does for people is that when she's lectured, when she's brought this information to people in the public, that they come around, they want to talk to you more, they want information, and it does change their lives. And I just can't emphasize enough how much I hope that people get involved in other people's lives, and shows like yours are bringing people together. So
Well, thank you. And well, beings like you are bringing people together. So once again, I'm grateful to all you do. I know it's a full-time job exposing this stuff.
it really is. Yeah, I mean, I run several websites. I help administer a Facebook group of 36,000 people in it right now, which takes a lot of people. Have no idea how much time I put into this. I also support myself. I'm not wealthy. I'm like everybody else. I have my own business, but I have to pay the bills. I've got to work to keep my clients happy every day, and I have very little free time on my hands.
Exactly. I understand that too. Yeah, we donate our time and energy, and we're not getting paid either, but it's beneficial on a different level of consciousness, obviously, for everybody. And somebody's got to get out there and do it. Somebody has to be out there to communicate this data, which is critical on so many different levels. And you mentioned something about the masses being busy. I'm wondering if it's just that they're distracted more so than busy. Seems to me like there's so many things going on to pull their strings in opposite directions instead of focusing on things they're supposed to be focusing on.
That's exactly right. In fact, I think that is part of the point. That is part of the point of all of the entertainment industry. The people who are heavily invested in the entertainment industry are the same people who are invested in the oil industry, are the same people who are heavily invested in the pharmaceutical industry. And because what these people learn, this is one thing. This is a fascinating conversation when we start talking about this, because these are the same people who financed and did experiments to learn how humans work, how they really think, and how their mind works. And these people know people better than people know themselves. And this is part of the distraction, is that if they can keep you distracted, if they can keep you wasting your time playing video games. I mean, there's nothing wrong with a good video. You want to go play a video game, you want to watch a good television show, that's fine, But what happens is if you spend 4 hours a day, like the average American does, in front of the television set, what you could do every 2 days? That's a work day. Monday and Tuesday, you just spent a work day in front of. What if you could take one of those 8 hours that you just blew Monday and Tuesday and send out 10 emails to people about chemtrails? Go research something about an herbal cure for cancer and give it to your friend who's suffering. The incredible resource of time that we have that is wasted because of distraction. That is a huge subject, but that's part of the problem. And if you fall into that trap, don't look at watching television shows for 4 hours a day or getting caught up in video games or things that don't do humanity any good. I mean, of course, we all need a break. We need to have entertainment. That's fine. I'm not trying to put all that down. But if we overdo it and we spend so much time that we're neglecting basic human contact and basic human empathy, and it's keeping us away from our families and we're not having our relationships, then it's doing exactly what those people who are in power want it to do. Because the more divided we are, the less information we share, the less we help each other, the more money they make because they become the caretakers. They sell you your medicine rather than the guy down the street saying, hey, I took dandelion, I took maitake, I took reishi mushrooms. I did these things and it got rid of my problem. They don't want you to know that. So I totally agree with that. Please turn off the television. If you're spending 4 hours a day in front of the television, you're spending a work day every 2 days, and that just blows my mind.
I agree. And the same can be said about the internet too, although I use the internet for research, but yeah, it can suck you in. So you really have to pick and choose your battles insofar as what you want to research and study and how you want to communicate. There's no doubt about it. And we have somebody in the chat who wants to know what your Facebook group is called. Zippy at 7490. Go ahead.
Hi, Zippy. Yes, the Facebook group is called Chemtrails Global Skywatch. Now, beware, there's a couple imposters. Some of these government-paid shills have created a couple groups that they try to look just like ours, and they're trying to distract people away from our group. Our group is the one that has 36,000 people. Those other imposter groups only have a small number of people. So Chemtrails Global Skywatch, do a search on Facebook for that group. Join the group, get educated, and tell everyone you know about the largest crime against humanity in human history, because we're all living through it right now.
Absolutely. And also from Zippy at 3520, they are asking if are there any treatments to help for dementia?
Dementia, yes.
I think that's what it says, although the spelling's a little off, but I'm pretty sure that's what they're trying to say.
Yeah, I'm sure that's what they're saying. Dementia is what we see in the human brain with dementia, with Alzheimer's. Let me give you a little background. I've had people call me. I talk to people on the phone all the time. People find my story, my mercury story. They find my website about chemtrails, and they call me, and I invite, and I have conversation. I've talked to great people from all over the world who are looking for answers, looking for hope, or called to provide answers. Let me tell you about an interesting series of phone calls that I received, and this will give you a little background about dementia. Do you know how many people, retired people, they go and they get dentures? Okay. They get dentures, and then I get a phone call from their parents who say, what can I do about my mother or my father, because they're going into dementia? I know there might be a relationship with dementia and mercury, but I saw your website about this. What can I do? And I will ask them this question. I'll say, how long ago did they get dentures? And they'll go, about a month ago or 2 months ago. And I hear this over and over. What is the connection between dementia and dentures? Because the red coloring, and I hope everybody's listening to this, because the health problems we face today are simple. And when you go down the path to the source, you find a very small number of sources for a huge number of diseases. What is the red coloring in dentures made of? It is made of cadmium sulfide and mercury. The red ore of cinnabar is mercury. So you have these people who get dentures, they're getting daily exposure to mercury, and a month or two, sometimes 2 weeks. I've heard 2 weeks. I've heard one woman call me and said 2 weeks after she got her dentures, she became, she doesn't even recognize people. She's, having all kinds of problems, memory problems. It just, her decline has accelerated at an unbelievable rate. And so I tell them, I said, the red coloring contains mercury. They're being exposed to that. And what about sundowning? They take their dentures out, they wake up in the morning, and a lot of their symptoms have subsided. They put their dentures in, and throughout the day, they become worse and worse and worse. And people just think, oh, well, you got a good night's sleep, so you're doing better. No, there's a cause for everything. Everything has a cause. What is the problem? If you're exposed to that mercury all day long, you decline through the day. Because remember, mercury goes in, and what it does is it tears apart the tubulin and actin which is the insulation. These are proteins, amino acids that the proteins that surround your nerve cells. There's the insulation on your nerve cells. Your nerves kind of have insulation. They have a conductor in the middle. I know I'm simplifying this, but this is basically how it works. When mercury is present, tubulin and actin, it actually just rips away, leaving what is called denuded neural fibrils. This means they're nude neural fibers, meaning they have no covering, they have no insulation. They start crossing, they start short-circuiting each other. You lose your memory, you have Alzheimer's, you have dementia, you have a whole array of these syndromes that happen from this. So what I would do is we have this video on our website, but go on YouTube. Probably easier to find on YouTube. Look for the mercury. What is the name? Let me look up the name of that video. But this actually gets into it. There's a video that actually shows where they put mercury. Okay, it's called "How Mercury Causes Brain Neuron Degeneration." Look that up on YouTube. How mercury causes brain neuron degeneration. They put tiny, tiny bits of mercury in a dish that had cells, had nerve cells or brain tissue from mice. And that brain tissue became denuded neural fibrils in 30 minutes. The tubulin and actin insulators were just torn away. This is where you get dementia. This is where you get Alzheimer's. This is why when I had my amalgam fillings, the year that I finally discovered, took me 5 years to figure out what was going wrong with me. And that's usually what it takes. Most people call me. They've been looking for 5 years, going doctor to doctor. My memory was horrible. Short-term memory was horrible. When I had my amalgam fillings out, my memory increased better than it had ever been in my life. It was absolutely dramatic. So I'm sorry to go on and on about that. But then after you remove the source of mercury, whether it's dentures, amalgam fillings, and of course, because I believe they're in chemtrails right now, there's a lot of evidence that they're in chemtrails. I can go into that later if you want to, but I believe mercury is one of the substances that they are spraying on us. It's showing up in soils. It's showing up in dust tests. It's showing up in water tests for no explanation. And the government cover stories that it's coming from Chinese power plants, but that's not true at all. I don't believe that because mercury only shows up to 12 to 14 miles downwind of a coal-burning power plant. Based on what they call the Gaussian distribution. I read a study about this. Nevertheless, sorry to go on and on about this.
It's great. And actually, this is so informative. I mean, I never knew that about the dentures. And also, Zippy at 7490 asked, can you get dentures without that red coloring?
I don't know.
Okay.
I imagine you probably can, but because people are just now learning about this assault on our health, I mean, it's astonishing that they would do this kind of a thing. I'm sure there are other forms of coloring that they can use. There's no question there are. It doesn't all have to come from Cinnabar. But I don't know for sure. I haven't looked into this myself, so I would talk to dentists and those who produce dentures and call the companies and see if there's alternatives. I don't know.
Excellent. And also, Steve Travesty, he's a host over here and a producer at Revolution Radio. He has a question for you about working 12 hours a day and are tired and dead at the end of it. And what can they do to regain that energy so they don't use the 4 hours of their time resting with watching television?
Gotcha. So what can you do for energy? Okay, thyroid stimulators, adrenal stimulators. Let me look up some of the herbs here real quick that I would recommend for these so that I can make sure that I give you good information. Herbal supplements. Now, the reason why I always talk about herbal supplements is because when we're being assaulted with something, we have to counter what we're being assaulted with to compensate. So, for instance, if we have mercury exposure, then our zinc, selenium, magnesium, thyroid hormones and stuff are being, iodine are being attacked. So we have to take a lot of those things to compensate. Thyroid activation and thyroid support herbs and adrenal support herbs are good. And I'm going to throw out some herbs that are really good for this that can help you. One called Foti root, Irish moss plant, kelp. Now, of course, kelp is all about iodine. Just make sure you use a good source of kelp, maybe from, if you can find a source from Canada, from the Atlantic, North Atlantic would be good. Parsley herb, sarsaparilla can also help. Vitamin B6, zinc, copper, manganese. You have to be careful with copper and manganese these days, though, because manganese has been found in some of the chemtrails, we believe, because we're having it show up in some of the water. And if you have too much manganese, that can be psychotic. It can cause emotional issues. Tyrosine, stinging nettle, protease blends, which are thyroid blends from either animal glandulars. There are things you can do like that to stimulate the thyroid. Let's talk about the adrenals. This can also, and I take this. I mean, this helps me tremendously. Let me see. For what I would do, thiamine, vitamin B1, vitamin C, of course, riboflavin, which is vitamin B2, vitamin B6. Pantothenic acid is real critical these days. It's also good to battle mercury. Some of the problems that you have with mercury. So pantothenic acid, there's so much information. I know I'm kind of just skimming over the top of it right now, but I mentioned magnesium earlier because magnesium is a component of adenosine triphosphate, which is ATP. That is the energy molecule. So you've got to have lots of magnesium. Mercury shuts down your magnesium metabolism, and so you've got to counter it. Potassium as well. Schizandra. Now, Schizandra is great. Is great, and it also helps to increase your glutathione production. And that's an herb you can, just go to the herb store. You can find Schizandra there. There's also a product that this is something I use every day, which is just wonderful, and it helps me too. And I take these things together. And you got to remember, herbs are food. So it's not like you should take one little capsule and be worried about the effect. Start that way, but build up. Take more and more. I take usually 4 capsules of an adrenal support, 2 capsules of a thyroid support, and then I take ashwagandha. Ashwagandha is great for helping with energy and the fatigue that I have from chemtrails. So there's some suggestions of things that you can take. And also keep in mind that part of the problem may also be that mercury interferes with your sugar metabolism, with your liver, with your glucose levels in your blood. And if you feel like you may be having sugar issues or you have sugar cravings a lot, take GTF chromium. And it's very important. Don't go get chromium picolinate. It is a worthless patented form of chromium that the pharmaceutical companies try to make money off. What you want to go get a nice low-cost glucose tolerance formula chromium. Now, why chromium? Because chromium is necessary to process sugar in your body. When you have refined sugar, what they mean by refined is they've taken out the minerals. But in nature, you have a certain amount of vanadium and chromium that occur with sugar, like in apples or other fruit. But when you take the chromium and vanadium out, it cannot be processed, and the body has to handle it like a toxin, and therefore it is a burden to the immune system. But by taking GTF chromium, I've had tremendous, because I used to have terrible sugar cravings. A couple GTF chromium a day, my sugar cravings are practically gone. So hopefully there's some suggestions in there that can help.
Oh, those are awesome. I so appreciate that. I know Steve would appreciate that too. So thanks. Those are good questions, you guys. Thanks for every question in chat, and really on fire tonight. These guys are really good with information and questions for you. So yeah. And so far as I wanted to get back a little bit with the if people have issues with their well, or they suspect their well is contaminated due to chemtrails, is there a way that they can check this, I guess, with the county or the city?
Normally what you can do is you can get a well test, get a water test done in your well water. And one of the first people I would call is a local university. A lot of times universities will have tests they'll do for $10 or $20 in their labs. And a lot of times the states like Maine has a kind of a thing set up where the university does a lot of the lab testing for the state. And so the university has a program where they offer lab testing at a very reduced cost to the public. So if you can call your state government and ask them if they know about university water testing programs that will give them a nice discount on water tests. And make sure you check for mercury, make sure you test for aluminum, strontium, barium, uranium, beryllium, thallium, just whatever, get the broadest range test that you can. A lot of water tests will not include mercury, so you have to get a separate test for that. but I would say don't neglect that if you can, because if you do find mercury is in your water, then you're going to want to take supplements to help keep that moving out of your system.
Yeah, that's good information right there as well. Are you familiar with magnetic beds at all?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
so what's your take on those insofar as recharging the body and perhaps healing the body?
A lot of people have had tremendous results with not only magnetic beds, but with magnets on their feet or magnets they wear throughout the day. Um, there's a lot. That's a whole nother field that I never studied in depth. I'll be very honest. I believe in saying when you don't know the answer to something, then just be honest about it. It's not something I've studied extensively, but I do know because I know so many people in the health industry. There are many herbalists who use that and have great results with their clients. So it's something worth looking into.
I agree. Yeah. I only used it one time when I was doing a martial arts test. This was years ago. But man, it was like totally recharged me. I mean, it made me feel like I slept for like 8 hours and I was on it for like 45 minutes.
Yeah, another thing that's real popular today is grounding. We're learning the value of electrons. We have to have an electrical balance in our bodies. Right now, we sit like I'm sitting at my desk on a carpeted floor, and I've got no connection to the earth. I'm probably a lot of people don't realize that when electricity flows, and this is actually one of my areas. I was trained in electronics. People don't realize that there's two particles flowing in opposite directions. The electrons are actually negative, and they travel from the negative pole to the positive pole. But there's another particle that they call holes. And holes are positively charged particles that travel from positive to negative. So they're traveling in opposing directions. Now, what you want to do is you want to have a proper balance of electrons. So grounding is very popular where people will put a stake in the ground and run a wire to a bed that has a conductive sheet or something that they lay on, or they will make sure they go barefoot outside for a certain amount of time of the day, and it helps to get that negative, the negative electrons balance back in your body. And it's amazing. This is something I am beginning to study now and learn more about because it is turning out that a lot of people are having amazing success with grounding. So it's something to also check out.
Right. You know what comes to mind also is that Kangen water, I believe. Doesn't it have that same quality?
You're right. It's so funny when I was talking about that, that came right in my mind because that's what Kangen water is. I mean, basically you have charge, you're charging those you're creating hydroxyls, you're creating negatively charged water. Essentially, you're getting your abundance of electrons. So when you drink water, people who drink Kangen water are saying it feels light. It doesn't fill you up and feel like a rock in your stomach like some water does. So that's another way a lot of people have had amazing results. Now, if you don't, one thing I want to say to people, and I want to encourage you, that if you try a certain modality, we call it, there's different modalities. If you try Kangen water and it does nothing for you, that's okay. Maybe you don't have an electrical imbalance. Maybe it is not that you're not getting the proper balance of electrons. Maybe it's another problem. So just try different things. And that's the beautiful thing about alternative medicine is that since most of these things aren't harmful, you can use the shotgun approach. You can try various things until you find something that works. And the cool thing is that's also a modality for diagnosis, is that when you find something that works for you, that tells you information about what the original problem was. So if you start taking something that chelates mercury out of your body and you start showing improvement after a few weeks or a month, well, that shows you that mercury really may have been the problem. So don't get discouraged if the first thing you try doesn't help you. Try one thing, try another until you find the thing that works for you. And like I was talking about the energy a few minutes ago about thyroid and adrenals, it's often not one thing either. When you have low energy, you can have a magnesium problem combined with a thyroid problem, because remember, mercury is sequestering iodine, so you're having an iodine deficiency, and you could be having an adrenal problem as well. So try all three of those things at once. So don't get discouraged. Keep trying.
Excellent. And also what comes to mind is muscle testing for herbs or any other product. Have you ever done any muscle testing? I don't know.
Yeah, so well, I don't do muscle testing, but I do. Well, of course, I don't work with clients directly, but a lot of people, a lot of herbalists do muscle testing these days, and they have amazing results. Yeah, muscle testing is one of those things that is not accepted by mainstream. It's not something that I ever got into, although I know a lot of people who swear by it and they say it works, and their clients have such success with it that they keep going back for more, and they have gotten healthy and fixed all their problems. So It's a fascinating, strange thing that a lot of people find success with. So more power to that. That's what freedom is about. If something works for you, then good for
Right.
you.
And I still think that whole avenue of homeopathic medicine, from everything from acupuncture, acupressure, and on, is so much more beneficial than the mainstream stuff. And I was going to say too, I've tried the Kangen water, and I'm telling you, it completely raised my vibration. I felt really clear mentally and really energized. So it definitely works for me.
Yeah, I've heard that from. I cannot tell you how many people I heard that from. I have spoken to many people who have been turned around by Kangen water.
Mm.
I don't own one. In fact, a company gave me a $2,000 from another competing company because they wanted me to sell their unit, and they gave me one. Um, and it didn't really do much for me. I've actually never had Kangen water personally. I'm very intrigued by it. I've heard about it for years and years. But I can't tell you how many people I've talked to that just say it has improved their health dramatically.
Oh,
So
it did. Yeah, I tried it,
yeah,
and I was like, yeah, I have to get one of those machines because man, it was like night and day. Whatever's in there, yeah, my system really needs it. There's
yeah.
no
You
doubt.
know, we are electrical. That's the thing is that I view the body as a machine. Our body is like a robot, and I know
Hmm.
we're souls. We talk about being souls. I firmly believe that we are souls within a body. This body's our vehicle,
Hmm.
and this is like a robot. It's a machine. It's a very highly technically advanced machine. It's electrochemical. It's biochemical. So all of these systems have to be working. When we contaminate that, it's like putting sugar in our gas tank of our car. It's like putting the wrong weight of oil in our car. It may run good for a little while, but it's going to wear down. It's going to break down quicker and faster. And I know these are very simple similes that I'm drawing here, but and everybody's heard them before. But our bodies really are extremely complicated. But the funny thing is what I've learned through my years of being in this is that most disease comes from a small number of toxins that almost all of which have been introduced through mainstream medicine or special interests in medicine or related fields like dentistry. Most of our diseases are caused by these things, and if we got rid of these things, if we got rid of the FDA, we would have a health revolution. It would turn everything around. People are being mainstream people who aren't listening to your show are not exposed to this, but enough people are now. Mainstream media credibility is down to something like 25 or 30%. They're struggling. They're struggling to maintain their credibility these days.
Right. Well, it's all lies and deception. I mean, I don't know how people can sit there and watch that garbage. It just amazes me. But yeah, you're so right. I mean, if we could just turn it all around, and I suspect we are just by doing this. Many of us who are listening, we have quite a big listenership here at Revolution Radio. I mean, it just takes one person, and then there's an osmosis effect, and everybody starts to get it. And of course, taking your power back. I mean, I can't believe these guys have been going out of their way to make everybody sick, and literally that's what they've been doing.
And that's what makes them incredibly wealthy.
Hmm.
That's the thing. And they know this. This is not an accident. They created the system. Do you know that mercury detox was written out of the physician's desk reference in the 30s?
Jeez, I didn't know
You know,
that.
you can go back to the 30s, 40s, and 50s, and there was an absolute anti-revolution in medicine. This is where doctors were dumbed down. The universities were taken over. The medical universities were taken over. They started taking over the textbooks. The pharmaceutical companies gained enough power where they started taking over the flow of information because they realized knowledge is power. And if you take away somebody's knowledge, you take away their power to heal themselves. And if you have that knowledge, then you can sell the product of that knowledge back to people and make money. But of course, they went beyond selling that back and saying, well, let's sell you things that cause other problems. Let's do things to you that cause other illnesses. Let's spray you with chemtrails. Let's put amalgam fillings. And I could go on and on about this, but they know what they're doing. There are people in the world that do this to us for their own benefit. And I have no problem with rich people. If you want to be rich, good for you. I'm so happy for you. No problem with that, unless you're hurting other people by doing it. Now you've walked over the line. Now there's a problem.
Hmm.
But there are people in the world who do this. Just like the man who talked about his friend who called me, and his friend had 200 people sit in a room, and they lied to the American public about these lines in the sky. They want you to think these are contrails. They are not contrails. High bypass turbofan engines do not produce contrails. They don't. These are not condensation trails. These are injected aerosols that are injected into the bypass air of the engines. So we're being lied to from all directions.
And of course, you have that background with airplanes. You come from a family of pilots.
I do. I have pilots in the family. Got an airborne ranger in the family. I took flight lessons myself. I would have finished and would have actually been a pilot had something not changed in my life at a particular moment. I loved jets and rockets. I've read when I was a kid. I was in sixth grade. I could tell you every U.S. fighter jet. I could tell you all the rockets, the Gemini, the Saturn V's, the Atlas Agenia, all of these rockets. I knew them all. That was what I was into. I watched the sky, collected pictures of jets, and in all the thousands of pictures I collected since I was a child, do you know how many pictures of jets that I have with a trail coming out behind them? Zero. None. None. It doesn't happen. The way when you burn kerosene, it doesn't produce water vapor. It produces black carbon. And you know that Wikipedia lies to us. They have these complicated formulas that are deceptive, trying to convince the public, and it does. It convinces a lot of people, oh, look at that formula. They have no idea what the formula means. They have no idea if it's right or wrong, but it looks scientific, so they just believe it. But the formula is a lie. They pretend that the atmosphere is pure oxygen and say, yeah, if you mix oxygen and hydrogen together, you get water. So isn't that great? Look, this is how it works. No, when you burn hydrocarbons, you get carbon. You get carbon soot. That's why if you go to an airport and you see an airplane taking off, you will see a faint black soot coming out of the jet engines, which are basically burning kerosene. So they just lied to us from all directions. I could tell you story after story about how I've seen mainstream media blatantly in your face lie to the public and get away with it. They get away with it every day.
It's really sickening. It really is. I remember seeing the Blue Angels when I was growing up, and of course they had I guess are they vapor trails when they come out like that?
No. When you go to an air show, they actually have something that they add to the exhaust that makes the smoke. That is intentionally done so you can follow them. That's for dramatic effect. You know, that you see those trails going across the sky. You can follow the planes. You can see where they've been. You can see the cool patterns. Sometimes they draw pictures. You know, they'll have red, white, and blue stripes, and they'll have two jets swirling around with a different color, and it looks cool, and it's all part of the air show. That has nothing to do with condensation. That's intentionally generated trails. And why do they have to intentionally generate those trails? Because they're not going to occur naturally. They have to be intentionally generated.
And of course, those aren't the toxic ones like with the Blue Angels or something.
No, those are those are not nearly going to have the effect on you that aluminum particulates and the other things, strontium, barium, and we believe now lithium is showing up, mercury. I mean, these are very, very toxic substances.
Right. Wow, times have changed. You know, in the old days, it was clear skies and a real sun that we could actually see to some degree.
You know, I would tell people, you know, if you want to see artifacts, these particulates are very, very small. I would encourage you, if you watch TV, look at any show you see today. Look at any program you see and look around the lights. Virtually in the old days, you know, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, when in practically any video production that they made, the lights, a candle, a light bulb, a laser will be crystal clear. Okay. Today, you watch these shows and you will see the artifacts of this stuff. The actors and actresses are all breathing it because you'll see the halos, you'll see the haze. The cameras particularly well pick this up, and it's mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing that people aren't saying, why is there haze around all these? Just watch television and look at the halos around the lights that the cameras are particularly sensitive to. It's everywhere now.
Yeah, it truly is. And of course, has anybody been keeping track of the wildlife casualties and suspicious animal deaths due to chemtrails or anything like that?
Absolutely. There are websites that are dedicated to talking about this. Anybody can search Google and you'll find hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of articles about birds falling out of the sky, seals washing up on the shore, the sterilization issues with elk and with deer. You know, why are they all sterile? It goes on and on and on. The animal die-offs are absolutely mind-blowing.
That's so sad to hear. And of course, I mean, I can get into the tree effect too and the things that are going on here with the trees in the forest. But if people want to get involved in this, what's a good place to go? I guess your Facebook page?
Yeah,
Oh, go
Yeah,
ahead.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. If you want to find the Facebook page really easily, just go to globalskywatch.com and click our Facebook logo right up at the top of the page. That'll bring you right to our group. That's the best way to find our group directly and start networking with other people. And I want to tell people this is only going to get worse unless you are personally involved. Don't sit back and wait for somebody else to call your representative, to go out and inform other people, to put pressure on the media, to put pressure on environmental groups. Um, it's up to you. Nobody's going to do this for us. Every one of us has to be involved. And if we don't get enough people, it's only going to get worse. So please, yeah. And if you go to the globalskywatch.com website, there's a link at the top, how to be involved, how to get involved. Click that. There's dozens of ideas of what you can do every day at 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes a day and make a difference.
Right. And isn't it interesting how none of these politicians talk about chemtrails at all?
Well, not only do they not talk about them, but they have these form letters they send back to you and say those are condensation trails. I mean, this should be eye-opening enough that why is it that all of your congressmen and all of your senators have the same response? It may be a different letter, but it says the same thing. Oh, these are just contrails. Why did contrails? When I lived in Jamestown, New York, it has a little tiny airport that can't support big jets. So you'd never see jets in the sky. And if you do, it was just because it was pinging light from the sun once in a while at a very high altitude. And never would you see trails, of course, because these engines don't make trails. And then all of a sudden, one day in 2005, you see these jets every single day on a schedule spraying these things. Of course, I smell them and taste them. So these are condensation trails. Are we supposed to believe that all of a sudden, all this incredibly low flying jet air traffic started gridding the sky, blacking out the sun on one day, and the physics of Earth changed, and all of a sudden this is what's happening? And now it should open people's eyes that all of these congressmen, all of the senators, the high brass in the environmental groups, which are controlled, the people who are in the environmental groups care, but the leadership is intentionally ignoring this issue because they are controlled opposition. And we have to be aware of what that is and how that works. So it should open our eyes that all of these representatives are giving us the same lie in unison. Isn't that weird? Why are they all doing this?
It's terrible. Well, it's sabotage. I mean, literally, they're doing a disservice to the people, without a doubt.
It's a crime against humanity. You are aiding and abetting a crime. By lying to the public, you are aiding and abetting the largest crime against humanity in human history. And there will be trials one day. There will be trials.
I'd like to see that today and not tomorrow, I'll tell you what. And of course, to me, it is a depopulation program. I mean, they're literally going out of their way to slowly kill people. That's all there is to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And they're using your tax dollars to do it. They're lying to you while you do it. We have to not be afraid, because this is one of the biggest things, is that this is so scary to think that your government's doing something that's killing people intentionally. People can't wrap their head around this. But the reason they can't wrap their head around this is because they never started learning about how the world really works.
Right.
That there really are people in the world who do this, and they always gravitate throughout history to the highest places in government. We were warned about this by the forefathers of this country. I'm not saying they were all good people, but nevertheless, some of them warned us that this was going to happen if we didn't watch out. And lo and behold, here we are. We have to be brave, because if we're not brave, there's no freedom. There is no freedom when you have a nation of cowards. You have to be brave to maintain freedom. So don't be afraid. You have nothing to be afraid of. They're the ones committing crimes. They're the ones that will be on trial, but it's up to you to make it happen.
I agree. Yeah, we have to have that fighting spirit of our ancestors. That's the bottom line. Didn't take very many of them, really. I mean, they were pretty good about it.
I know. I know. And the thing is, people got to realize the people are so discouraged by all of the disinformation. You know, you have all these, imagine these shows on TV. You ever see these shows where the FBI walks in the room and everybody's paranoid? Oh my gosh, there's an FBI agent. Uh-oh. He's a human being. He works a 9-to-5 job. He's just, it doesn't mean he's someone you should be afraid of. You know, we have to understand that the power is in the people. It has always been in the people. But the lie is that people don't believe. They believe the lie that you can't fight City Hall. Where did that lie come? You can't fight City Hall? This country was formed by fighting City Hall. The greatest freedoms we've ever experienced in the written history of mankind came from fighting City Hall. Yet, now government tries to tell us, you can't fight City Hall.
Yeah,
really?
See, yeah, I don't like any of that entrainment. It's all about entrainment, and it's not
That's
okay.
Right. Exactly. Where do you think those lies come from? They come from the very people who want you not to fight, which is why you should be doing the very opposite.
Absolutely. It's called empowerment. Yes, indeed. Well said, Russ. You know, we're getting ready to wrap this up. I can't believe this 2 hours just blew right by, didn't it?
Oh, yes, it always does. It always does.
It's been great to have you on. I want to thank you so much. And of course, once again, let's give everybody a rundown on how to get in touch with you if they want to hop on board with all of your information.
Absolutely. Please get involved against the largest crime against humanity in human history. You're living through it now. You please get involved. Globalskywatch.com. You can go to our Facebook book page by clicking the Facebook logo at the top. Please, if you want to write me, you can write me at russ@globalskywatch.com. Or if you forget the address, just go to the contact us link on the globalskywatch.com website.
Excellent. Well said. Very good. And also, please stay tuned. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. And thank everybody in chat for really good questions tonight. Please stay tuned for Shiny Side Out with David Dungeon Mickey, of course, coming up next to sell you into the night from Down Under, as they always do with their fabulous show. Looks like we had one last question here in the chat from Zippy3520. Does your guest know anything about Angela's husband who's filing a lawsuit with Dane Whittington about the chemtrails?
I do know a little something about that. I want people just to realize that a lawsuit is going to be very long, very drawn out. It's going to take a long time, and there has to be a lot of social pressure if we're going to win. So much of what happens in the courtroom is really based on social pressure. It's not about law, it's about social pressure. So whatever you hear about a lawsuit, keep pushing, keep waking people up, and don't think the fight is over just because somebody filed a lawsuit. But there'll be more information coming out about that, I believe, in the near future.
Well, that's great. I wish we could file a lawsuit in every state.
Yeah, there will be. I mean, people are waking up to this, and when the attorneys see that they've been thrown under the bus by their country and by their associations, they're going to be very angry. So let's wake up attorneys, wake them up. They're breathing this too.
Right. Yeah, they have families, don't they? I mean, they must certainly care about their children and their grandchildren, right?
Yes, absolutely. Everybody is being thrown under the bus by these people who are spraying us. Everybody. So this is their biggest mistake, and this is our opportunity to turn things around, and we can do it. Everybody needs to be involved, though.
Yeah, that's excellent. And once again, Russ, I do want to thank you. I want to ask you real quick about ionizers. Do those do any good insofar as protecting your home environment from possible chemtrail particles?
They do. If your home is particularly well sealed, they can help. In fact, electrostatic air filtration systems are one of the two, also including water filtration systems, that actually do take nanoparticulates out of the air. HEPA don't, carbon do not, on and on. But electrostatic can. Ionizers can help reduce the count too, so they can be helpful.
Oh, excellent. And also, I think we're going to round time. We did round time. Well, thank you, Russ. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in, and see you next week. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.